There's lots of possibilities, even outside of dogs.
Yeah.
How can you enforce the codes if you're not sworn in with a badge and everything?
Well, I did take an oath of office,
Yeah,
and I do have the badge, but
it's like the fire department, you know, if you got fire codes, but you really can't enforce them being a fireman, it has to be the inspector that's sworn in.
Okay, 6 o'clock. This is the Village Hebron Combined Council Committee meeting. Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Wolf,
Here.
Mrs. Stoner.
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter.
Yes.
Mr. Nauer. Mrs. Chapman.
Yes.
Mrs. Porter.
Yes.
Can we stand for the pledge of allegiance, please?
What like?
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We have 2 visitors here tonight. Do you wish to make any comments at this point? Oh, you can have the presentation later. It's up to you. If you want to make a comment right now.
no presentation later.
Oh, okay.
No, any comments now?
Oh,
Yeah, we have 2 presentations tonight. The first one will be from Win Wake, which is our current trash haulers. The presenter is Matt Holland, the general manager. Mr. Holland, the floor is yours. If you can share with us what your presentation is about.
Perfect, thank you. Thank you for having me. Excuse me. I appreciate the time that you're taking to allow us to present tonight. I understand Mr. Chen had some literature that he could or will be handing out tonight. We also have a short promotional video we can share as well. Just a brief introduction. I want to take some time tonight to introduce Wood Waste to you more officially and myself. My name is Matt Holland. I'm the general manager for our Heath location, for our hauling company, our transfer station, and also for our landfill down at Tunnel Hill in New Lexington. So I oversee the Heath market, the New Lexington market, and kind of this pocket of Ohio for Win Waste. Win Waste is a company that has a slogan of performance for the planet. So we try to do everything we can to preserve the planet and do our part in preserving it for the generations to come. We practice what we refer to as a curb to grid waste solution. So we do this in a few steps, collecting residential, commercial, industrial, MSW or garbage, and recycling from customers at the curb, recover and recycle those materials and then turn them into new products, capture material for disposal, and lastly, but probably most importantly here, convert gases into renewable energy by putting this back into the grid. This allows Win Waste to recycle what was once a negative, the emissions from the landfill, reducing odors and increasing positive output of energy. Our facilities are comprised of 19 hauling facilities, 14 transfer stations, 13 waste to energy facilities, 2 material recovery facilities, 3 monofills and 3 landfills across a multitude of states from Ohio, Connecticut, New York, Rhode Island, New Jersey, New Hampshire, Maine, Georgia, and Florida. Win Waste has been providing service to the village of Hebron since acquiring certain assets from Adkins Disposal in March of 2023. Being your service provider is something we're extremely proud of, and we appreciate the opportunity to engage with you and the residents, truly being a part of the community. Since Win has started operations in the Heath market, it's been a key to invest in our facilities and our communities that we service. And that's what brings me here tonight. We've been working on ways to further engage with the communities that we service, the residents, and to highlight what our team does and who we are. The team at Hebron has been gracious in allowing us these opportunities, and we thank you again for that. Tonight, I'm just going to highlight our landfill a little bit more at Tunnel Hill down in New Lexington, where the waste from Hebron is taken after it goes through our transfer station in Heath. In the last couple of years, we've invested over $54 million in an advanced gas treatment facility at the landfill, which allows us to capture the emissions from the landfill, put them through a process to remove the sulfur and the nasty smells that are associated with sulfur, and then partner with a company called Vision RNG to turn that into a renewable gas product by the end of this year. So as I mentioned, we've got it can be technical. I'm gonna try and keep it as succinct as I can. But basically, we've got a gas plant down at the landfill where we take the gases off the landfill, run them through a proprietary system with a company called Americhem to basically clean up the gas and remove all the sulfur gas from it. So it basically takes the sulfur gas, treats it and turns it into a solid. I would have brought some here tonight. I had a jar, but it would have left a lasting impression on the room, so I spared you the odors.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I didn't go near the plant today when I was down there, so I wouldn't carry any of that. My wife appreciates that. But it turns the sulfur gas into a solid. We remove that into a roll-off box, which then gets just returned back to our landfill. But it significantly reduces any noxious odors from the landfill, taking away the sulfur smell. The landfill gas is collected from the landfill by pulling a constant vacuum through a series of designed horizontal and vertical gas collectors. And we use multi-stage blowers to do this. We send the landfill gas through the treatment trains of the plant where a product is added to it to turn it into a solid. And then we turn it into elemental sulfur. The treated landfill gas is then sent to 2 enclosed flares for destruction. The inert elemental sulfur is removed using a filter press and then just ultimately landfill, as I mentioned. Plant efficiency is verified using a large system of gas monitors with a continuous emissions monitoring system that operates 24/7. It's called, the facility right now has 2 trains in it, so 2 basically vessels that treat the gas. We actually began construction on train 3 about a month ago, and there's room for train 4 as the landfill expands and we ultimately produce more gas as we take in more products over the life of the landfill. So by the end of this year, train 3 will be complete. So we'll have 3 complete vessels that then treat the landfill gas as it comes through. Couple of interesting stats. Since we started doing this, our sulfur dioxide emissions have been reduced from 1,200 pounds per hour to 20 pounds per hour that go into the atmosphere. As I mentioned, we've got a partnership with Vision RNG. They're actually building their facility right now at our site too. So we've got a couple of big projects going on. By the end of this year, we hope to have both train 3 complete and the project with Vision RNG complete. Once that's complete with Vision RNG, we'll take the gas from the landfill, run it through our plant, remove all the sulfur, and then pass that gas through a system of pipes right onto Vision RNG. They'll put it into their pipeline. And just that landfill alone at Tunnel Hill will produce enough power to heat over 35,000 homes a year. New Lexington is in Perry County. There's 13,000 homes in Perry County. So we can do twice as many homes in Perry County just off of the landfill today. So obviously we accept more material, that number goes higher and higher. We refine our processes, get cleaner gas to give to Vision RNG. That can have an even larger impact on the community as a whole. And we're still early in the process of those projects, like I said, but we would like to extend and have open arms to anyone who wants to come and visit the landfill. It doesn't sound that glamorous, I'll give you that. But it is kind of fascinating to see how technical the landfills are. I think, 30 years ago, it's a dump. It's a, let's go put a hole in the ground and bury the stuff. It is absolutely not the case anymore. It is incredibly sophisticated and monitored 24/7, 365 by a team of people. We have around 100 people that work at the landfill. And my team does a fantastic job of monitoring everything we can, from inputs to outputs to the systems that we need to maintain the landfill to the products that we can return back to the environment to help reduce our carbon footprint as we move forward. So open invitation at all times to get a hold of me or anyone at our facility, and we'd be happy to take you through. But that's what I have. I know, like I said, Mr. Chen has some promotional material from us, and then a video that you can see, as well as an article that goes into much more detail about the hydrogen sulfide removal plant. that I won't bore you with reading tonight, a couple diagrams, but it is some really fascinating technology. We're one of very few landfills in the US that actually have this system. We also have one at our landfill in Seneca County up in northern Ohio. So something that we're very, very proud of. So, but I thank you for all your time. And if you have any questions, I'll take them. But otherwise, I've got cards I can leave to, and feel free to reach out at any time.
I have a question.
Mhm.
In the landfills that I've seen, there's vents that come up and they're usually curved like this. What is being emitted from that? Is that what you're talking about? Sulfur gases are coming through that?
Yeah,
And if that is the case, how is that harnessed? How do you gather that after it goes through the vent pipes?
yep. So that's actually just a header. So it is closed and completely sealed. But then the third-party contractors that we work with to help us with our gas flow can then open those up as needed to service, or we can turn them off, turn them on, and kind of adjust the
So they're
gas flow.
not necessarily live.
No, no,
Well,
no,
so, but they can be if you turn a certain valve and so
Yeah,
forth. and
but-
that happens.
yeah, but when we open them, there will be no emissions coming out of
Yeah,
them.
I'm not,
Yeah,
that could have been my first one, my second question, but I was more concerned about whenever I pass either there or down on 71.
yeah, that's Waco.
You see these giant vents, for lack of a better word, but there always seem to be kind of latent. There's nothing happening.
Mhm.
You don't see anything. It's not like a furnace vent or
Right.
anything like that. So I was just curious what that emission was or could be.
Yeah, yeah, so it's basically, just think of it as an access point for the entire system, because from there, the pipes will run. There's a system of horizontal pipes that run through every 4 to 6 or 8 feet, depending on how the landfill's built, or they'll go straight down and be vertical into the landfill. So there's an entire system of pipes that get buried every week when we go through, and as we keep going up, you can pack the waste, put in the gas pipes, because the gas is very important for us to collect for a few reasons. Number one, we don't want any of it emitting into the atmosphere up from the landfill. So we try to capture in those pipes and then use our H2S plant specifically to funnel it where we want it to go. So we can treat it, maintain odors, capture that gas, because it does have a value and we can reuse it at some point. So it's a recycling.
You mentioned the tiers of the piping. Is there a maximum height?
Yep, there's a maximum height set by the EPA. So we work very, very closely. The EPA is on site a minimum of once every 2 weeks for regular meetings with us and we're in lockstep with everything that we do with the EPA and the state agencies. We have fill plan meetings, gas meetings, everything is kept very tightly monitored from the state. So we're both in full communication and transparency with each other.
What happens with the liquid runoff?
That is all captured, so every landfill is sealed at the bottom. We actually just opened a new cell, so if you were to come down next week, you would see our brand new cell that's dug down 110 feet. And next to it is a mountain of trash and material that goes another 110 feet high. As we built that, there are a multitude of liners that go in, so that none of the water that rains down onto the material will actually get into the ground ever. There's so many liners, and they're thick liners, they're sewn together, they're welded together. And we capture every single drop of water that comes into that landfill and we treat it. So it goes into the holding tanks at the landfill and then through a wastewater treatment plant to be treated. So none of it will go into the
Do
ground.
you have a wastewater treatment plant on site?
Yep. Yep, so we've got storage tanks, we treat it first and then it goes off-site as well to a wastewater treatment facility.
Hmm.
So yep, not one drop will actually go into the soils after it's touched the material in the landfill.
This is captured.
Yep. So yeah, it's pretty fascinating. Like I said, it's not just a hole in the ground where everybody buries trash anymore. It's incredibly sophisticated. So, but like I said, we want to do everything we can for the environment, while maximizing all the different byproducts that we can that come out of that material and put them to good use in the end.
So I assume where you're at was strip mines at one time.
Yes, it was. Yep. And we have quite a few operators who used to work in the coal mines that work for us, or their fathers, grandfathers did, and
How many more years you think you got to fill?
yeah, 30 years. Yep, and we'll plenty of space to keep growing. And yeah, we've got a great relationship with Perry County, with City of New Lexington. They're also a partner of ours on the residential service side. So yeah, we've got some really good partnerships, and hopefully we'll be there for a long, long time.
There's two things I'd like to mention about wind waste, just of my own usage of it. Number one is I've had a couple of calls, recording, saying that the schedule is going to be off
Yeah.
by generally a day. I find that helpful and quite nice that they even do it.
Mhm.
So I appreciate
Good.
that. And the other is, the other day, it was really pretty cold and it was snowy and all this kind of stuff. Well, maybe they'll come and maybe didn't miss a beat. They
Yeah.
were there right on time. I don't know if they have a time, but it was
Yeah.
within the approximate.
Most drivers do.
Yeah.
We don't, we call it collection day, but most drivers will have a specific time they like. If they're not on schedule, it's rough.
They were that day, and I don't know that I've ever had a wait that I thought was not possible, but then I know there's equipment failure, all kinds of things can happen.
Yeah,
But those two things are outstanding, other than the fact that the trash disappears, which I also appreciate.
yeah, exactly. Well, we appreciate that. We try to do everything we can to communicate with everybody. I know the week of January 6th, we had the snow event and kind of threw us off a day and tried to communicate that. And those are tough decisions to make, but yeah, there's a lot of variables that go into it. And
Mhm.
it's best for everyone if we can maintain the Monday through Friday schedule, but it's not always possible. So, and we try to do it as safely as we can. We walk the line of, can we still get this done and not have to make thousands and thousands of phone calls? Or, where the safety of our team is the most important for
Well,
us,
it's
so,
good feeling.
yeah. So as long as, if we're gonna miss it, we better communicate and tell everybody why, so we try to be as transparent as we can and keep everybody happy.
I appreciated when I got it. I don't know that I really needed it, but I was glad I got it.
Right, yeah, well, believe it or not, if we don't do those, we get twice as many phone calls coming to us saying, where are you? So try to do what we can.
Once you do the landfills with the liners and you reach maximum and have to move to the area, is there a time limit? Is that totally gonna be buried forever? It's totally sealed, it's like.
Yep, it's totally sealed, and we there's temporary caps that go on every day, so right about now, the guys are finishing up. We're putting a temporary cover on it so that nothing blows away. And then once we get to that point, we're finalizing everything, then we put a final cover on it, final cap. Because again, we don't want that gas doing this and going into the atmosphere. We want to capture all that. We want to keep it where we want it to be so that we can control it for a number of reasons. So yeah, everything is permanently capped once we close the cell as well. So yeah. Any other questions?
Pretty fascinating.
Yeah, it is. I love talking trash, so I can do it all day. Yeah. Not many people do, but I do, and as cliche as it is, I love talking trash.
Getting better.
Yeah, so, but I sincerely appreciate the time. We appreciate your business. We appreciate the partnership, and I moved here 9 months ago from Minnesota. I was doing the same sort of thing there. So I call this weather t-shirt weather to me, but it was 19 below back where I used to live this morning.
Oh, my.
But no, I made a focus for me to work with the Heath team here, specifically the collection side, the hauling side, to kind of strengthen our partnerships. Understanding you didn't sign up with Wind Waste originally, we were part of an acquisition through the Atkins process. But it's a completely local team here. 95% of the people that work with us in Heath all live within 20 miles of Heath and the various communities surrounding Heath, Hebron, Etna. So it's very, very local, and the team there cares tremendously about what they do. They've come from a smaller family-owned company type feel, and that's still very, very evident. It's what I came from Minnesota. I didn't work for the big companies. I worked for a family-owned company. So it's very, very important to us that relationships like this thrive and survive, and we keep doing everything we can to keep everybody happy. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a great
Thank
evening.
you, thank you.
The next item is a presentation from Buckeye Lake Regional Cooperation. Mike Tornataro. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Again, Mike Fornataro, Buckeye Lake Region Corporation. I'm the executive director. The BLRC, our constitutional meeting was September 19th of 2017. And what are we? We unify the political entities and residents around the region. And then we advocate for private and public resources to improve the well-being of the region. Since 2017, we have brought over $15 million to the Buckeye Lake region. And we are a 501c3, so that's both private money and public grant dollars. There's always confusion about our name. What's this corporation doing? We focus on water quality, infrastructure, and public places like parks. Some examples are, Buckeye Lake for Tomorrow out there, advocating for clean waters in the Buckeye Lake watershed. They're the experts, but we can raise money. So with, I would say in the neighborhood of $80,000 that we provided to Buckeye Lake for Tomorrow. A lot of that money is during the aerator project. But there's projects going on all the time. Right now, they're looking at a project at Honey Creek and putting a wetland over there. Honey Creek is the worst of the inflows into the Buckeye Lake area, nutrients and sediment. And we've supported them by paying for the engineering studies that had to be done so that they can apply for grants. Public places, sure, as you may have heard, North Shore Park in Buckeye Lake, we were successful in securing $11 million for that park. Right now it's a boat ramp and a parking lot with a little bit of green space. And I'll get further into that park and what the plans are for it. But it will be a much nicer park. It'll be an amenity for everybody. You won't have to live on the lake to interact with the lake. Right now it's, you kind of either live there or you got a boat, otherwise you don't have a lot of access. Other parks that we've been involved in, possibly creating a park on the east end of the lake in Thorn Township. We've got an opportunity at almost a half-mile long strip park. But it's really, it's been a very complicated process, but we're still working on it. Infrastructure, it was based off of a presentation here from MS Consultants. We got with MS and moved forward through our own funding, the BRIC grant to look at alleviating the flooding on I-70. So that's the kind of stuff that we're involved in. And that project's still going forward. We're not involved now. We got Fairfield and Licking County on board, and now I believe it's being moved forward by ODOT in Licking County. But we all know, you live out here, that's a can that's been kicked down the road for 60 years, and that flooding needs addressed. Other infrastructure projects, just finished up a grant with, it was a state grant to look at the canal in Millersport. If you go down Canal Drive, you can see how the guardrails are leaning towards the water. The gabion baskets, which are metal baskets filled with rocks, which is what armored the banks, they're failing, they're rusting out. The rocks are sliding out, the whole bank's sliding, and there's gas mains that run through there. It's infrastructure, it's transportation, it's public safety. So we just completed an engineering and design study there. I had $425,000 in state grants to do the engineering. And then we contributed, the Buckeye Lake Region Corp did $50,000 of our own money to do the design work. And that wasn't part of the scope of the state grant. So we came away from it with the engineering, this is what's happening, this is how you fix it. And then also the design work of what's this going to look like, what could it look like when it's done? And I'll take that now and start calling on elected officials, whether at the state or federal level. The federal thing's kind of weird right now. We're gonna see how that settles down. And advocate for the funds to repair that, North Shore Canal. North Shore Park, I mentioned that. I mentioned that we have brought together the, political entities around the lake. On Wednesday mornings, we have a call with our executive committee. And on that call virtually every week are a commissioner from each of the 3 counties. That give and take didn't exist before. We've been doing this since 2017. Every Wednesday morning, we have a call. And it's helped to build relationships between the counties to where they're comfortable just talking with each other. You know, that was never the case before. Some of the issues have been resolved, you know, hey, let's work together, let's get a cup of coffee. It's a casual relationship. And now we're also doing that with calls on Thursday mornings with the townships and villages so that everybody can share expertise. Hey, this is a problem we're having here. How are you handling that? Well, this is how we're handling it in our village or our township. So we're working to unify the political entities on all levels to improve the well-being of the area, to build those relationships, you know, to where they can talk to one another. In my handouts, I'm not gonna go deep into this one. This is, I do a newsletter. It's only 2 pages, but I'm only one guy. And I do this quarterly. This last one was a compendium of some of the things that we've done. So if you'd like to take a look at that at your leisure, it'd give you an idea of some of the things we do. This is the next page. So I'll tell you a little bit about this, what this photo is. We did a focus group, multiple focus groups about 2.5 years ago. And we invited people from all around the region, around the Buckeye Lake region, and asked them, what are some projects that we can do? Don't give me a $10 million project. Keep it like 75,000 or less. What are some projects we can do that would make a difference? The communities would like to see. And some of the feedback was, of course, water quality. Well, we addressed that on an ongoing basis. Another was branding and consistent signage. So I put out a communication to the communities and said, hey, we'll pick up 90% of the cost. We'll do signage for your community. We'll do branding if you want it. You don't have to do branding, but if you look at this sign, there's a Fairfield Beach brand right in the middle at the top, and to the right is the Walnut Township brand. Those didn't exist before. The way that process worked is, of course, that was with Walnut Township. We relied on them to bring the residents together. We had a focus group and an advisory committee, and brought in a branding company from out of Columbus, a company that does this stuff, and came up with a brand that the community got behind because they were all involved from the get-go. I mean, this is a community thing. And of course, the one with the lake reflects Fairfield Beach, and Walnut Township's more rural and has the corn and kind of plays back to the Sweet Corn Festival. So we did the branding, we created the signs. There's 2 of these signs in Fairfield Beach. Have any of you seen these signs in person or?
I just saw it today.
Okay.
I work in Millersport and I drove to Cornville and I was like, wow, that's really nice.
Isn't that something? There's one on 204 and the other one is on, anyhow, it's on the east side where you come in from Thornville down Zion Road and around that way. We picked up 90% of the tab. The other 10% was picked up by Walnut Township. And then you see the advertising on here. That advertising revenue will go back to the township. So this thing becomes a revenue source for the township. And they can maintain the sign, they can keep the sign nice, they can offer the advertising to the businesses, and they can set whatever parameters they want, you know, whether they want to reach out further, because like here's North Valley Bank and Miller Sport Marina, excuse me, a longtime local Buckeye Lake Marina. So they, you know, they pay to be on the sign and the township gets the money, so getting ready to do one for Buckeye Lake. You guys have probably, many of you have seen the one on this side of Buckeye Lake. That was done by the Chamber of Commerce. We're going to partner with the chamber to do one on the west end of Buckeye Lake. But that sign looks like this sign, Kessler Sign Company. Of course, they're local folks. They did these signs. And so the signage needs to be consistent for this to work. So we're gonna partner with the chamber on the one on the west side of Buckeye Lake, and then I'm gonna open it up to other communities. Do you want to do a signage program? Do you want to do branding? You know, do both, and we'll go from there. If everybody, and when this was done, of course, Walnut Township's like, we think we'd like to do that. Now lots of people would like to do it because I've seen how nice it actually came out. This is all, you know, aluminum and made to last forever, set in concrete. So we're a relatively small organization. We're a board of volunteers. Myself, I'm not truly an employee, I'm a consultant. We don't have an employee actually, several consultants, but we'll create a queue of communities that want to do this and then work through the queue. And it's kind of expensive. This project here, we probably had at least $50,000 in it. So between the branding and then the signs. So that's the signage, and there'll be more information coming on the project for, you know, any communities that want to do it. And then we'll have to decide how we work through the queue. So then this one was your next illustration. This is North Shore Park. This is the plan for the $11 million. Some of you may have seen the plans that were done, the design work that showed Ferris wheels and the restaurants and such. $11 million doesn't buy all that, but it does buy the footprint. So the infrastructure would be in place for further expansion. It does pay for the pier. So this thing you see that's in pink, that's a land pier. So it's like seawalls filled with dirt and then grass on top. So this is all green space. This greatly increased, and this isn't a property acquisition issue. This is the state boundaries. The only thing you see on here that's not in the state boundaries, there's a little communication building like right here. Been there since, I think, the amusement park days. Otherwise, this is totally on state land. It increases the parking, you know, parking's an issue over there, gives a much nicer beach. The boat launches, there'll still be the same number of boat launches, but there'll be a specific one for paddle boats, and the boat launches will be new. So it'll just be something that we don't have to ever, you know, mess with for a long, long time. They'll all be new. And what's really key is you see this green area to the east, it says East Docks. Those are transient docks. My wife and I will go to a lot of things in Millersport because there's public docks there. There's transient docks. You can tie up and go to something in town. These docks will not be rental docks. They'll be transient docks. So if you're out on the lake and you want to go to the Chinese restaurant in Buckeye Lake, or for whatever reason, you want to go to the restroom, you want to go to the beach, you'll be able to tie up your boat there. Like a park, think of it as a parking lot for boats. The only other place that exists is that seawall in Millersport. So this project I'm working through right now, it's all ODNR property. We have two pots of money. There's 2.5 million that is in ODNR's budget that will work out at first. And then we have $8.5 million that we actually had from the one-time strategic, I don't know what they called the fund. You probably remember what they called the fund. But we ended up with $8.5 million out of that fund for this project. So the shovels in the ground should be probably the end of summer and completion hopefully 27. It's involved, you know, a lot of permitting and stuff, and you're messing with a waterway. And it's an aggressive timeline. But that's what we anticipate there. And the park will not be closed at any point. So the boat ramps will always be open. The parking, so there's a gentleman at Buckeye Lake, Wilbur Roby, and he owns this whole section over here, this big square along Route 79. Great community minded fellow. And he's like, you know, if you need a staging area or if you need parking because you're working on a parking lot, you can work something out there on his property. So we'll have it, you know, open the whole time. So that's the overview of the park. This is your final illustration. That's a rendering of what the Millersport Canal could look like. This is not as extravagant as it appears. It actually increases docking, it increases safety. It is designed in such a way that it'll be generations before anybody has to worry about this deteriorating. It'll be a nice little walk along the canal down at water level. There's no ADA access over there at this point. You know, it's really steep. You gotta step over the guardrail and then go down that steep little bank to get to your boat. Doesn't work at all for ADA, and this will have ADA elements to it. We did a public unveiling for the community in Millersport, and they were very receptive to this plan. They thought this was pretty cool. This doesn't take any private land. This repaves Canal Drive. This is expensive. It's not as expensive as the park, but it's probably $6 or $7 million. So without the tools, without the design work and the engineering work done now, I'd never have the opportunity to go find the money for construction. But now, and you can point to so many reasons why it would work because of infrastructure issues and safety issues, that I'm hopeful that in the next few years, I'll find the money for that. North Shore Park, I've been working on it since 2018, somewhere in that neighborhood. I mean, it takes a while to find funding at that level, as some of you I'm sure know. So that's what we do. That's some of the bigger projects we're doing right now. And I'm here to answer any questions anybody has for me or comments.
A quick question.
Please.
On this Millersport, it looks wider with the walkway down by the water. Is it gonna make the canal any narrower?
No, because that canal is really narrow as it is now. It actually, and it's incremental, it's maybe 6, 8, 10 inches widens the canal. Because what you've got now, you got that bank coming down, and then you've got the docks, the wooden docks that are kind of ramshackle that stick out into the canal. This navigationally, this has no impact.
How long is it gonna be? Like, where's it gonna start? Where's it gonna end?
It would start at Lancaster Road, Lancaster Drive, you know, where the bridge is, and go to just about Buckeye Lake Marina. When, you know, at the entrance to the backside of Buckeye Lake Marina, it would go to there.
That's pretty long.
Anything else?
It's the old fire station out there. They're rebuilding that Grand Staff and Hebron Road. What is that going to be, you know? Because that's part of it. What you got here, it says future parking, I think, or something there. They've taken all them houses out down through there.
Oh, Village of Buckeye Lake. That is, so you're talking about like on the left-hand side, if you're going that way towards the park, just before you get to the park where it's all cleared out?
It used to be, I think it was a party house at one time.
That's Wilbur Roby. He's a local fella. He lives on Crane Lake. And he purchased all that property from Don Dick's widow, Peggy and TV. And, Wilbur, very community-minded gentleman. He owns a lot of properties around the village. So what's nice about Wilbur owning that is he doesn't need to monetize it. So he's got patient money. He wants to see how things evolve there before he makes a commitment as to what he's going to do with his property.
Yeah, I thought I'd seen it one time where that was gonna be put into a park or something. One time.
No, not that I'm aware of.
Yeah, it's just nostalgia. That used to be the old fire station before they moved to where they're at now.
I remember that. I've heard the story. It was like at the backside of the old party shop, right? Yeah. Wilbur owns that building, and that building's renovated. Hey, if anybody needs, like 2,200 square feet in Buckeye Lake, Wilbur leased that for now, and he's, stabilized the building. But, no, it's, there's almost no way it would be a park again. I don't see that. Anything else? Anyone?
So when you're through with this, what's your next project?
Well, seeing as how the park probably,
Asked in jest.
well, it's kind of funny because this one will probably take me to retirement. And then I can just put a check mark and go sit on the dock. Yeah, looking forward to it.
It's been amazing changes already, though, one is coming in the future.
It is, lots of people have been here longer than I have. My parents bought their first place on the lake, it was on the other side of the lake at Honey Creek, when I was in junior high school. But we've been out here, my dad loved the lake, and we've been out here pretty much ever since. I mean, there for a while, my wife and I couldn't afford to live, on the lake, but we never have lived far away. She grew up in Harbor Hills, and we're locals. And, we've watched that change. It's really gratifying to see. And then the infill is really cool. Like if you go through some of the interior streets, and it doesn't matter which community you're in, you're starting to see some really cool infill rather than a mass development that stresses infrastructure. Starting to see some really cool infill, people making investments in new houses in existing neighborhoods. And that's really encouraging. They're not on the water, whether they're in Dornville, Millersport, Hebron, or Buckeye Lake, it's interior neighborhoods that are seeing that reinvestment. Good stuff.
That's kind of amazing. Where's you say you got monies from here and monies from there. What's the main source of those monies?
State grants,
State grant.
yes.
From
That,
what department?
it comes through, it depends. So the, Department of Development has been positive. So, let me back up. I go and sit across the table from the state rep or the senator or whoever. And I say, here's some of the projects that we want to do. This is the kind of money we need. And when that money comes up, it's generally an ODNR's budget. And we work out of their budget, it's a set aside for this project, because a lot of our projects are on ODNR property. So it depends on what the project is as to where the funds end up. But I don't go to ODNR or the Department of Development to ask for money. I go directly to our elected officials and ask for the money. And if they can figure out how to make it, and we're really lucky here. We've had some great interactions with public officials. I mean, $15 million since 2017, probably actually more than that, but I'm counting private money too, because we also receive private donations. But the vast bulk is state. We've got no federal money yet. The direct federal money.
There's an awful lot of effort that goes into it. A lot of volunteer hours are just beyond understanding, because it has to be a long time devotion and commitment to it or it won't fly.
It is, I'm actually compensated, this is a job for me, but it's a job I love. I used to work at National Trail Raceway with your previous mayor. I worked up there for 14 years with Jim. So I really enjoy doing it, but our board is huge. If you're elected, if you're in HOAs, have representatives. So my board's like 35 people. Some are very involved, some not so involved. But we have a lot of very active volunteers because this is a special area and there's passion amongst these people and they want to. And there's also a lot to protect because we all feel the pressure of the things that are coming. And we want them to be right. A lot of what I do is addressing the sins of our fathers, where they just didn't think about it. I'll talk to a group and I'll say, the worst thing that ever happened was the amusement park. And that, what? I'm like, let me tell you how this went. The fact there's no infrastructure. It was left to decay. And that's how this area earned its reputation, was because of that decades of decay. People have longer memories about stuff that's bad than things that are good. So yeah, we have a lot of pressures right now. We just need to get it right.
Going back several years, and there was this enormous dredging project. Is that nearing completion? Will there be a continuation? Is it a continual process that has to be done?
It's a continual process. They've had a lot of issues and the low water issues last year. There were some other issues with it. The main dredging area right now, and will be for years to come, is the east end of the lake, because it's predominantly a west to east flow in Buckeye Lake. So the sediment stuff settles on the east end and it's the worst. Going back to where they pump the dredge material just north of Thornport itself, between Thornport and Thornville. We were part of that process in getting the state to buy that land from the Catholic diocese. That's one of the big issues out here. There's nowhere to pump the dredge material. That's a developed area, and if you're talking about dredging the lake, you gotta have somewhere to pump it.
There was a really big area that would lay west of the highway that in the last couple of years seems to have been flattened out and somehow tied to a future something or other. Would that have been the dredging material?
No, the dredge material is all east at this point. There's a little bit of dredging that goes on to the west, but that's usually pumped. There was a lot of it that was pumped at Brooks Park, but that's ended there. They still pump some to State Island, which is actually the island just before you get onto Leaves Island. That's two separate islands there. And that State Island's mostly native dredge material. But yeah, the main dredging though is all east.
Use that as fill on your new pier?
Can't, it's unstable. It takes years to get it to dry. Even with the advanced system they have out there at Thornport, it's great fertilizer. Like, anybody's a gardener, they'll give it to you for free. It's amazing fertilizer because it's all nutrients. But it's not stable. In fact, we're getting ready to do an engineering study. There's a thing called a crystal lake or crystal lagoon, and it's a way that you separate water from a body of water. So in this instance, on State Island, a seawall, the water inside is lake water, but it's treated and becomes crystal clear. Not sure where I was going with that, but that's another project that we're getting ready to initiate. All the dredge material. Part of it will be built on that island. State Island is mostly dredge, yeah. But we'll be looking into, that process. And again, that's an engineering study only. It's not citing or anything, but the Crystal Lagoon has, a lot of people are excited about that. And you can find these things on our website. We post all these designs there. What else? I can hang all night talking about Buckeye Lake stuff. Okay. Well, thank you for your time. I do appreciate it. You've got my card and I'm not kidding when I say, if you got any questions, call me. If you wanted to meet for a Coke or a coffee, call me. I'll be happy to do that. And if you have, like I say, any specific questions or anything you want to talk about.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
The next item is pending legislation. The ordinance number 02-25, an ordinance to amend the village zoning map and rezone parcel known as Refuge Road Southeast, West Main Street and 952 West Main Street, Hebron, Ohio, and more specifically identified as auditor's parcel number 075-344904-00.000. 075-344904-00.004. 075-334904-00.002. 075-34492-00-005 and 075-3449004-00.003. It will be a second reading.
Sorry, I didn't hear what you said, Mr. Jenny.
Oh, let's move on. The followings are the different committees. Public Works Committee, we had a meeting on February 5th, and we heard reports from the B3 concerning the flood improvement modeling outcomes, and they will be back on March 19th to present the outcome to the combined committee. That will be next month, combined committee meetings. And the next one is finance. I'm sorry. Would you like to add, you need to add something?
I'm glad that that's scheduled for the 19th. Thank you.
Sorry,
No,
thank you. Finance Committee, and I'm going to turn this over to Deborah Morgan, our Chief Fiscal Officer.
Thank you, Mr. Chen. I think I handed out some papers at the beginning of the meeting. I think I've mentioned before that we were going to need to do an appropriation amendment at the beginning of the year, just to cover some things that we didn't have numbers for at the time to put in the appropriations for this year. And then a couple things that's came up since the beginning of the year. I'll briefly go over it with you, but you're welcome to take this with you and review it. And then if you have any questions, you can reach out to me, you can call me, come in, see me, email me, however you want to get in touch with me. The first items there are the general fund. We're probably going to be moving forward with looking at the construction phase of possibly a diversion ditch, whatever may come of that. Have no idea what the fund amount would be, what our share would be.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
The diversion ditch for our brick funding. The first part was for the study to be done. So looking in the future of what's next. I wanted to put some in for engineering for them to maybe start the process. If we find out some numbers later on, we may have to look to do something different, but it's a start at least to make sure we have some funding in place for that. And the next one is just for a little bit of a cushion in our operating supplies in the administration line item in the general fund. And then the buildings and grounds, we've met with, Mr. Chen can also elaborate on this as well, so jump in if you want to. We met with the person who works, or the company who works with the AEDs. And we're working on a plan to switch to a different company who is a little bit more economical and will also provide our first aid supplies in our boxes. But we do need to purchase another AED for the library portion of the building. And then we also discussed the need to have one in our public works building, our wastewater building, and the water department. Even though they're not really necessarily open to the public, they're public buildings and we do have employees there. So they run about $14.95, so about $1,500. I put that in each one of those budgets to cover for the AED. The next item is probably the biggest item here as far as the general fund. At the end of 24, I was hoping that our police department's carryover would be a little higher, but unfortunately it came in about $100,000 less than what I was hoping. So in order to make sure that they have enough revenue to get through 2025, we'll need to do another transfer or add to the transfer from the general fund to the PD. So that's what that amount represents there. Moving on, Public Works, that's the $1,500 for the AED. The ARPA fund, we have $1,250 that we need to appropriate to finish out that fund before the end of the year. The police fund, adding 18,000 in for their operating supplies. Their operating supplies amount that we budgeted for is just not going to get them through. They're just with the cost of things. So that gives a cushion throughout the year. And then $12,000 contractual services, just to add some cushion to the hiring process for a new chief. The Community Enhancement Fund, I've put $8,000 there. That's to appropriate additional donations that we do now know that we'll be receiving versus when we did the budget, we had no idea of what we'd get. So we would need to appropriate that amount. The Parks Fund, $500, and that's just for services throughout the year for the AED and anything we might need, just to that. Wastewater Fund. We talked about the decommission of Sunny Acres Lift Station and then the needed upgrades to the Canal Lift Station. We did not put that in the budget when we did this for 2025's budget. So this $150,000 represents that. At the time, we were not sure of what the cost would be. The next is the AED that we talked about. And then the 63,000 is for more pumps for the lift stations and maintenance on the lift stations that Tom has realized that we've had some unexpected breakdowns at the beginning of the year. And so he's had to use a lot of what has already been appropriated. So this kind of puts back a little bit in case we have any more future issues. Then the pretreatment fund. Mr. Chen would like to move forward with starting to take some of the pretreatment funds and use those toward the payroll for our wastewater superintendent. Part of his duties is part of pretreatment. So we're thinking of taking about 10% of what his payroll would be and start taking that out of the pretreatment fund. And then that will also help lessen the responsibility onto the wastewater. The next is the water funds. First one you see is the AED. The next one is capital outlay. The water department, they did not have the figures in when we did our budget for 2025 for the Maple, Broadway, and Worcester water line improvements. They want to do those when we're doing the Maple and Broadway culvert replacements.
Yeah.
So that is a total of $585,000. The next out of the water replacement fund is the amount that it's going to take to finish the well number 7 project, which is $479,000. Leaving off with capital outlay out of that, it's additional funds needed for our share of a grant, if we would be fortunate enough to get that, for the High Street water line replacement. Mr. Chen, we've applied for an OPWC grant for that. If we were to obtain that, then that would be what we would need this year for our share of that. So these are the things that unfortunately we did not know or have come up since we did our budget at the end of 2024. So I know it's a lot of information thrown at you. That's why I'm here at a committee meeting, so that you can take it, digest it before I would ask for you to make a motion at the next council meeting to draft the legislation. So do you have any questions right now? Okay. Well,
Question. So the AEDs, we don't have these in these,
not currently in the water wastewater.
In the outline office.
when we updated the ones that we do have.
The only one that we need updated currently is the one that's in the library. The
Okay.
one in this building here is fine, but the new company would come in and service it if needed. So it does not need to be replaced.
Okay.
But even if the library moves out, this building's large enough where we would still need that one over on that part of the building, so.
Thank you.
Is there any training for the AEDs or just follow instructions or is there people? in the
That's,
building that are
yeah,
trained?
that's the next step. We need to look for
Mhm.
finding the training program for the village employees so they know how to operate it.
Mhm.
That's correct.
So I recently met with the assistant chief from West Licking Fire. And we talked about a few things. One of the things we
Yeah.
talked about is securing first aid training for the team. And also, CPR training for staff. So during that conversation, the issue of AEDs came up and they'd really like us to use the equipment that works with their machines in their medics so that the data uploads right away, et cetera, but the price differential, it's almost over twice the
Yeah.
price.
Yes, it's
Um,
considerable.
Yeah, and so I did receive a communication recently from the chief, and so maybe we could talk turkey. I don't know if they're willing to cost share or something. Because I do see value in being able to, immediately have access to the data in the machine, but cost wise, I think carrying all of that on our own would be a bit much, so. So hopefully we have a little bit of time between the work you're doing to get the money to the work that you're doing to
Absolutely.
secure the products, so.
Absolutely. Yeah, go ahead, Todd.
Yes, I mean, we met with two companies, one that we're currently working with and then another. And just the difference between those for the same machine was thousands of dollars. So
Is that anything that a safety grant would cover?
I'm not sure. I'm,
Wondered if the.
We can definitely explore those. Absolutely.
the plus is with the one that we at least have the initial quote for, the 1,500.
Yeah.
That company services them with no charge. So. All right, well, I have no questions. I'm actually, if you don't mind, I'm gonna leave a little early this evening. My husband's having surgery early in the morning, so I can get home.
Take
So,
care.
all right, thank you.
Economic Development Committee, there's no update on that. Police Committee, no update on that. Water Wastewater Committee, if I may, miss.
Go ahead, yes.
We just had the subcommittee meeting before this combined meeting, and the staff shared two items with the committee. One is the proposed bulk water sales between the village and the Licking County. I think we are pretty much at the final phase of completing this agreement, so we are going to present that to the full council for consideration. So the essence of the proposed agreement is that we are looking at providing them up to 175,000 gallons per day. And the agreement is going to be on a 5 years term and renewable up to 15 years. And then there is the increasing rate when the consumption exceeding 175 gallons for 3 consecutive months. So they'll pay, the rate is going to be the in-town residence rate. when they exceed the consumption that we stipulated, and they will be paid 10% more, on that rate. And the second item that we shared with the committee was the source water protection assessment plan. And that was part that the council this last month adopted the creation of this committees. So this is the second piece we're trying to put together, really give us a general guidelines and the policy, how the village need to first of all identify the potential old business or the users that could contaminate our groundwater. We identify those, and then we need to start develop a platform of educational programs to help the residents, the business owners, and the school. So we can all work together to protect our groundwater source. And that is the second piece that we have presented to the subcommittees. And we're going to share, put that on the next action items. So the council can direct the solicitor to draft the legislation to get that action plan adopted by the village council in the month or two. So those are the two major items that the subcommittee talked about. It's good. Okay. So that is that. There's no updates from the personnel committee. Okay.
Going back to your water,
Yeah.
do we have any say so on the amount of taps that they put under water line? I mean, we're just going by gallons, we're not going by,
That is correct. Yeah, we just saw that.
so they had talked about a housing addition going in out by Harbor Hills and all that, so
Yep.
if they put in 1,000
They
homes
still-
out
they
there,
still
we
get that
don't care how many taps they put in.
That still gets 175,000.
And then whenever our rates increase, that increases
That is correct.
automatically on there.
That is correct. That is correct. And that is all in the agreement.
Something else that I thought was helpful to discuss, which we did discuss in the committee meeting, was at the edge of the village where our meter is, everything after that is their infrastructure. They pay for all of it, the meters, the piping, everything. So our cost is literally the creation of the water and getting it to the end of the edge of the village.
So I think the same thing that we talk about for Heath too. The Heath having the tap on it too,
No, he does not have the tap,
but
no.
I mean, they had talked about doing that.
Yeah, eventually that we're looking at the connectivities. That is just for the immersion purposes. Yes. Any other discussions?
I have one thing. So thank you, council, for participating in the training last week that we had that was focused on the logistics of being on council, right? Like the do's and the don'ts and the things to make sure that we're thinking about as we're engaging in our work. I think the next step for us is actually engaging something at a good 60,000 feet. Really thinking about where we're headed. If you think about our function as elected officials versus the function of the staff members, their job is to execute your will, right? Your job is to be all the way up there in that crow's nest, looking far into the future, thinking about the challenges that we'll probably face, the opportunities that we should probably seize, and also think internally about the strengths of our team, the weaknesses that we maybe have that perhaps we can mitigate. I'd really like for us to do that work. I think that oftentimes in this role, when I was on council, I felt like my job was maybe as oversight. And that's certainly part of it. If my position goes astray or you're seeing something that's not working, then absolutely we need that feedback because you are another set of eyes and ears out in the wild, right? Seeing what's going on. But the real strength of what you can provide to the village is actually not being in the day-to-day, not you know, welding pipes and doing the actual work that the village is doing as a staff. But imagining what we could be doing, imagining what things are probably coming our way and how we might address those in the most positive way and thoughtful way and strategic way for the residents of the village. Going back to what you've heard me say a million times about our work is to do the things that the residents can't do for themselves. And so the talent that we have in these roles that you serve in could be best leveraged if we would consider doing a strategic session. This isn't a comp plan session. This is a strategic session that's really focused, very big picture. But all that to say, that's what I think the next logical step is. I feel like our group has kind of gotten its sea legs. We've worked together for a while. So we know enough about the dynamics. I think everybody has been, at least my experience has been, everyone on this council has been courteous to one another. I think we're interested in each other's opinions. I think we genuinely believe everyone is up here to try to accomplish great work for the village. So I would expect a session like that would actually be really quite productive and really quite helpful. So if you would be interested in doing something like that, I'd like you to reflect on that and then perhaps give feedback over the coming month. And then I'd be interested in designing something like that for our team.
So there's no other topic for discussion? Yes,
Several months ago, I brought up the need to have a hole in that building down there.
the records building?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's still open.
funny you mentioned, we had
You
just,
can take a chunk of.
yes,
Plywood and
Yeah.
put 4 nails in it and be done, at least temporarily.
Sure.
But Lord knows what's in there. I expect birds and whatever birds leave behind.
Yep.
And I think we need to do it because if that is storage, those are history and provable things that might be called on for court. And that thing is as open as it can be. And I don't see any reason why, you know, a ladder and 4 nails and a hammer ought to take care of that.
sure, sure. That is on their work plan next week or two. We haven't just had the opportunity to walk through the building, trying to figure out what we're going to do with the buildings itself. Yeah, it'll be taken care of as far as the,
Chunk of plywood
yeah,
and 4
absolutely,
nails.
sure. Yep,
I'll be looking.
okay, I'll be putting the plywood on that.
Now you're scared. But you know, I think it's been on the books for at least 6 months,
Understand,
so I don't want to hear about bad weather.
sure, understand. Anything else? I will entertain the adjournment of this by meeting.
So be it.
Oh, are we to sign and give this back? Is this on, am I the only one who has this here?
That's for me.
right.
Huh?
Yeah, we've received
Yeah, that's
that,
for me.
yes.
Oh, for you.
Okay.
Yeah, you received that.
Can we have a roll call, please?
At 7:12 PM, Mr. Wolf,
Yes.
Mrs. Stoner,
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter,
Yes.
Chapman.
Yes.
Mrs. Porter.
Yes.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you.